welcome back to Earth Station Trek, a show where we trek from the early days on NBC to the future on Paramount Plus and everywhere in between. I'm Charles Kelso, and it's my privilege to introduce the Earth Station Trek crew, Keith Johnson,
You mean there's more than two dimensions?
Alan Seiler,
Wait, everybody, shut up. This Kim's got two pip.
and Veronica Dashel.
Hi.
And welcome back, everybody. So yeah, tonight we're going to be talking about the latest Lower Decks episode, Fissure Quest.
Yes.
Before that, we're going to be talking about the new Section 31 movie trailer.
Yes.
But before that, Keith, do we have some This Week in Trek this week?
Yeah, and since we're in this time of year, almost everything comes from the OS, but they've got a couple of things. Two shows premiered 1 year apart on this date. On December 8th, 1966 is what's increasingly become one of my favorite original series episodes. The more I watch, the more I love it. And that is The Conscience of the King.
Oh, I love
Which
The Conscience of the
is-
King.
Yeah, isn't that a great episode?
It really is.
For those who don't know the name right offhand, that's Kodos the Executioner, the guy who killed Kirk's family, or at least some people on the colony, Talos 4, not Talos 4, excuse me, and killed some Lieutenant Riley's family. Yeah, I know Talos 4. I got that written down. So look at Tarsus 4, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, it's a great episode because to me, I've said this so many times. Kirk, as a character, is memed as the guy who speaks with staccato and overacts. The Shatner Kirk that I still remember is this Kirk from that first half, especially the first season. This man is acting up a storm. This is 100% Shakespearean, and it's not about action. It's not about pew pew, but it's a great episode. It gives us Kevin O'Reilly. He's a good character. It's just a great episode.
Yeah, I love that episode.
Yeah, one of my favorite. And then exactly 1 year later, an episode it's decent. It gives us one of those Commodores that people always make fun of, and that is The Deadly Years. The episode with some of the main crew, Kirk, Scotty, McCoy, Spock. I forget the yeoman. They get the disease that makes them all age, and you've got kind of a stereotype because very few people. I always wonder where people come from who become Commodores and Admirals in Star Trek. Because at least in the original series, they all go crazy, or they're all devils. And this has got Commodore Stalker, who takes over the ship because everybody gets old. And he is, in Kirk's words, a carebound paper pusher who evidently has never commanded a starship. So as soon as Romulans show up, he just freaks out. He's like, "What do I do? What do I do? We gotta surrender." And they're like, "Dude, they're not going to take prisoners."
Yeah, Commodore Stalker was a moron because he, for one, decided it'd be a great idea to just cut across the neutral zone. And then, surprise, there's Romulans there. And he had no idea what to do. But he was played by Charles Drake, who was in my all-time favorite movie, Harvey.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. I haven't seen Harvey in about 5 years. I love that movie.
That's your all-time favorite movie?
Yes.
That's so interesting.
I love Harvey.
Cool.
It's a great movie.
Yep. Those are two movies that I used to watch with my grandmother a lot when I was a kid.
December 10th, 1966. I did not know this. Open letter published saying, "Beware, take action because this new great series." Okay, Rita?
No, you're still roboting.
Yep, you're breaking up a little bit there.
Okay, try again. How's that?
Okay.
Better, okay? Okay. Okay, December 10th, 1966. There was an open letter published that exhorted people to save Star Trek because it was already under threat of potentially being canceled. I did not know this. December 10th, 1966. This is not Bijo Trimble. This was an open letter published by Robert Bloch, Harlan Ellison, Robert Matheson, and Theodore Sturgeon. Yeah. Famous writers and science fiction writers who exhorted the fans, if you like this show, write in to Paramount NBC and tell them so, because they were already concerned the show was on the boat. I had no clue that had taken place. And then, ironically, exactly 1 year later, Miss Trimble initiated the letter writing campaign that really is given credit with saving Star Trek.
Right. And it's it's telling that. I mean, I understand these guys are big science fiction writers and that they are fans of science fiction themselves, but also Star Trek was a market for their type of writer. So a lot of those guys were working, like their scripts had been bought by the show, and so it's in their best interest financially as well for the show that's buying scripts from them to continue on. So I don't think it was purely because they were huge Star Trek fans, although they may well have been. But it is. I mean, it's great to see like that who's who of like sci-fi anthologies of the '60s rallying around Star Trek. I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and for those who know the history, those are some of the biggest writers, like you said, Charles, of the time. Those are just some of the biggest writers. Between them, you're talking about things like Psycho and The Last Man on Earth, and just so, of course, Harlan Ellison, who was Harlan Ellison, just so many great things with them.
And I think that Theodore Sturgeon was the most anthologized writer ever. I'm doing this from memory, but I believe that's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He was a great one. And then the last one, I thought this was pretty cool. On December 11th, this is kind of fun. 3 things happened across the years. In addition to Miss Trumbull starting the letter writing campaign, on December 11th, 1989, was the first day of filming of one of my favorite Star Trek episodes of all time, and that is Yesterday's Enterprise. Okay. I just love that episode. That's, of course, the one where the Enterprise C comes back in time, introduces Captain Rachel Garrett, brings back Yar. Just a great episode. One of the best time travel episodes in a franchise that does a lot of time travel episodes.
Yeah,
just one of my favorites.
Yeah, and germane to what we're about to be talking about, because Rachel Garrett is returning to Star Trek.
Yes. And then fast forward to 1998. On that exact same day in 1998 was the premiere of the Insurrection movie for Next Generation, which it's not a bad movie, but I think everybody feels almost like not so good, huh, Veronica?
No. I did manage to finish it though.
Well, that's good.
You can't win them all, Star Trek.
Most people feel it says it feels like an episode of the series, honestly, just slapped up on the big screen. It feels like an extended episode. I kind of feel that way too.
I mean, so did the first Next Gen movie.
Which one was that? Not First Contact. Generations. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Insurrection is fine to me, and ironically, the one that's considered the most hated is Nemesis, but I actually like Nemesis better than Insurrection, which is funny.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the last thing, and I will not say anything past this because of Elaine, but a fun episode. And the exact same day that Insurrection premiered, it was the first day of filming on the DS9 fun episode. Bada bing, bada bing, bada bang.
Okay.
And I can't say anything else because that. I don't know if Elaine even knows about that in Deep Space Nine. I can't remember. So
well, we've certainly mentioned it before on our show.
Yeah, we're going to continue talking about DS9.
Yeah. And in their rewatch, it's quite a ways in the future. So,
yeah. So look forward to that. And that is this week in Star Trek history.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, so we got a new movie trailer this week for the upcoming Star Trek movie, which is kind of weird to say because it's not. I mean, it's a movie. It's like a TV movie, I guess. Would be the closest analog. Which we've never really had before. We've had like feature length episodes of the show where they would do like a 2-parter that's crunched together and that sort of thing. But we've never really just had a Star Trek TV movie.
Right.
So this is something new for Star Trek.
True.
Before we get into that, though, I have one comment. Our opening segment, and that is from Mark, who says Commodores get promoted up to get them out of the way of captains who do the real work.
That seems to be perception, but man, if that's the case, that means the Starfleet is top heavy with incompetent commanders. That's horrible thought.
Okay, now back to the movie.
Sure. So lower. I mean, did you guys see the Section 31 trailer?
I did. Yes. Watched it today.
Yes. Who had any thoughts about it?
Oh, none. Kidding.
This
will be really a great podcast.
Right.
No matter.
Go ahead,
Charles. I'll say, no matter what anybody ever says about Discovery, even those who really dislike the show, that show always looked great. And if nothing else, this thing looks really good. And it's Michelle Yeoh. She's one of the few actors when you say she's in a project, I'm really interested because a lot of times I'm more concerned about the project and the writing than necessarily who the actor is. But Michelle Yeoh always brings me in.
Right.
It looks really good. And I even stopped yelling about how Section 31 shouldn't be this open and known at the time. And it just, I have no idea what to expect, but it looks really exciting.
Yeah. And I referred to it as a TV movie a few minutes ago, which I guess is sort of underselling it because the production values of these TV productions are exceeding what Star Trek movies did back in the day. And the lead actress is an Academy Award winner. So it's not, I guess the TV movie makes it sound like it's a low budget affair or that it's lesser than, but we don't know that. I mean, and I've said on the show, I don't know how many times now, that the mirror universe isn't really my thing. Section 31 isn't really my thing. Those just aren't the things I like about Star Trek. And that's not a new versus old Star Trek. That's just an all Star Trek. And I wasn't a huge fan of Emperor Georgiou as we went along in Discovery, but I'm sort of looking at this with an open mind because the thing that sort of grabbed me about it is the idea of doing a Star Trek story that's not set. It's not centered on a Starfleet crew. It's just out in the world of Star Trek. And it looks like they're bringing in a lot of different Star Trek aliens to sort of populate that world. And that does interest me. So I'm intrigued to see what they do with it. I said Section 31, or this seems more like Section 31 is sort of turning into the Suicide Squad. So the Section 31 Suicide Squad, there's sort of the rogues and misfits who I would assume are going to have a redemption arc, you know, that they're getting a chance to make up for their misdeeds, I would hope.
Yeah, and we certainly have some surprising aliens that show up in this trailer. One of which is a Deltan, which I think we had known already that there was going to be a Deltan character in this movie, but we get our first taste of this Deltan in this trailer. And one of the 3 times today that I watched the new episode, one of those times I got a Section 31 trailer before the episode started, and it was a different cut of the same thing. And the Deltan has lines, and the accent sounds very much like Persis Kambata's accent in the original movie. And I'm excited about that because, you know, a lot of times, like the very first Andorian, no other Andorian sounded like that. The very first time we saw Troy, no other Betazoid sounded like her. So I'm kind of loving that they're sticking with a similar sound for this Deltan. And I'm looking forward to seeing what part she plays in this story. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think that's a good pull for, I mean, I guess we saw Deltans briefly in Picard season 2 at the beginning, but they really didn't identify them as Deltans. It was just like you find out behind the scenes that like those bald guys are supposed to be Deltans. But I mean, I really liked Ilea in the motion picture. I would have liked to have seen, you know, more of that culture, and hopefully it'll be fleshed out in a more of a way than just we're so sexy. You know, I mean, they can do cooler things with them now, kind of like they've done with the Orions. I don't know that they will because this character does appear to be sexy. So I don't know. Maybe she'll just be the sexy, you know, no man can resist me kind of character. But maybe, hopefully, I would think there'd be more to her than just that.
Yeah, agreed. And then there was another notable alien that shows up in this.
Yeah, there's a Charon in the trailer.
What?
I know.
Jumped off the couch when I saw that. I was like, I mean, that was completely unexpected.
Picture, Alan.
Oh, I did it in today's episode too. We'll get to that.
I went running in slow motion down the corridor, the hallway of my house.
Yes.
No, I mean it's interesting. I would expect that this character, at least from the trailer, it looks like it's just a side character. So I don't expect to get a lot of explanation as to how there's a third Charon, because it was implied or I guess it was outright said in the original that those were sort of the last 2. But I mean, they'd also been chasing each other around space for however many centuries. So I mean, presumably another Charon could have got away. But I mean, this guy looks to be of the same color scheme as Beale, who was, I think his people were sort of more the oppressors on that planet. So I'm glad he didn't turn up and let that be your last battlefield, or you know, Lokai would have had a terrible time. He'd have been outnumbered 2-1.
Right. I really kind of hope, even if we don't get an explanation of how there's a third one existing in the universe, which can be done easily. It can be you know, there was a colony somewhere else, you know, he was out exploring, I don't know, anything. But I would like to see, you know, kind of how these individuals exist in the universe. Like, not necessarily what other prejudices do they have, but I want to see what their mindset is. I want to see how that plays into this subject matter, you know, because I feel like it's such a specific pull from classic that there's got to be a reason for it. And it could simply be that they look cool and people will freak out when they see it, but I would like for it to be a specific reason.
Right. That's what I was going to say. It was probably the reason is that they thought it was a cool looking alien.
And it's an easy makeup to do.
You would think, but I think the makeup on the original actually looks better. It has the more crisp line down the center, whereas this guy, it looks like his white and black is sort of like it's blurrier.
Yeah, but it's I don't know. I like this better because it seems like if you're talking about skin pigmentation, it wouldn't be a solid line.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Look, you know.
Yeah, that's cool.
There's some interesting thoughts around that because one, as you said, Alan, this is one of the times when they do a callback or whatever that I'm not as critical because there are spacefaring people. I mean, Beale had a shuttlecraft that the Enterprise couldn't even see, so you would think that somebody was off planet. One of the biggest. Crossing the streams in the Superman mythos, they always have to come up with some reason why this super advanced race of Kryptonians never left their planet. It's just really insane. And so it kind of makes sense. Now, the only thing they have to do, because this is before the original series, is they can't have that person being all out and about because in the original series, it wasn't just that, McCoy said such a being couldn't exist. So this was not a known person to the Federation. But
that will not stop them.
Nope.
right. They'll come up with something with that too. Yeah.
So, yeah. No, and I'm not saying it's unrealistic from a science fiction or story perspective, but just from the allegory of the original and the story of the original was that it set these guys up as the two last. And now they're not. I know that they're not necessarily the two last of their species. There's also obviously ways in which they could not be, but I don't know. I think it's if you're going to undermine the story of the original where this alien comes from, I would just prefer they have a good reason to do so.
Me too. I agree with that. They have almost a verbal typo in the original because he said he'd been chasing them for 50,000 years, which is freaking insane. So I think a couple people got off planet that
time. There's a series of comments from Mark One Ho, who says, I dislike Section 31 in all its incarnations. This thing does not look anything Star Trek to me, which is an interesting thing because I feel like the first teaser trailer that we got, that is absolutely true. I feel like this trailer, I don't know, maybe they paid attention to the backlash from that teaser trailer, and this one looks much more Star Trek than that original one. He also says, I would much rather see a Star Trek intelligence TV movie. Me too. I would love that. And he says, Sharon is a spacefaring culture. It stands to reason that others would be out there. Exactly.
Sure. Maybe.
My only thing is they can't have been known by the Federation at that time. But as Charles says, they may not even care.
When they were at war with the Gorn, maybe they had a share on.
Oh my God, you just got all my nightmares in one, Charles. They're at war with the Gorn, and Kirk leads the attack fleet.
Right. And yeah, I mean, I think it doesn't look particularly Star Trek-y visually by design. Yeah. But I mean, people also said that Deep Space Nine didn't look like Star Trek. People complained about the dark sets and that you have nefarious characters and non-Starfleet characters, because that was what Star Trek had been up to that point, was the original series and the Next Generation. And so I'm intrigued to see what else Star Trek can be.
Plus, this is in a week in which we've just gotten the third episode of a new Star Wars series, which has like cul-de-sac neighborhoods.
Right.
That doesn't look Star Wars, right? But people have seemed to love this new show. So I don't know. I'm willing to go with it. I mean, yes, there's big windmills and all kinds of stuff, but I'm in. I'm willing to see what they have in store for it.
Yeah, I'm going to approach it like I do all of them, with an open mind, and I hope that it's good, because it's more fun for me to enjoy Star Trek than to not enjoy Star Trek. So, but if it's not, I'll certainly have my opinions.
Really? You?
No. Never.
I think Mark, Charles, I think your comment and Mark's comment is very interesting because you said you don't really care for Section 31, and I think Mark kind of implies that Section 31 doesn't feel like Star Trek. Like he would rather see Starkish Intelligence. And Section 31 is one of those Rorschach tests of how you feel about Star Trek and writ large. I love the concept of Section 31 because, you know, maybe it's me, but I still think even in Roddenberry's time that the Federation itself even won't be as perfect as Roddenberry hoped. And that may be my modern cynicism. So I love Section 31. However, then here we go. I don't like the Section 31 as introduced in Discovery because, you know, as it was originally introduced, at first you thought it was like two guys, like one guy and two beefy guys in a room. Nobody can ever really find out they exist. Slight spoilers, you find a little bit more about it in Deep Space Nine, but it's still an incredibly clandestine organization. So when Discovery introduced the ships and the badges, and here comes a Section 31 starship, I had a problem with it. So it's very interesting where some people can't stand the existence of Section 31 at all. I like it as very, 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 very dark ops. And then others will love this thing. So I'm like you, I've always approached it with open mind because I don't know what Section 31 we're going to get.
Yeah. Well, let's not lay all the blame at Discovery's foot because, you know, they were in the tail end of Enterprise also.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And Into Darkness also had
Yeah.
Section 31. And I don't hate that it exists. And there's some of the stories in Deep Space Nine that I like, but Section 31 and the Mirror Universe are both just not necessarily the things about Star Trek that I enjoy. And I think they're overused, which makes them more annoying, you know? So the fact that this is starting out with Section 31 / Mirror Universe thing, it's not starting off on, you know,
double
what excites
whammy.
Me about Star Trek.
Right.
I said, I'm not a hater of it. I'm happy to go see it, or I guess stay home and see it.
Go see it.
Ain't going nowhere.
Right.
But, I'm excited for something new for Star Trek. I would like for it to be successful. I like Michelle Yeoh. And I mean, really the thing intriguing me, you've got like a Cameloid, you've got the Delton, you've got the Charon, and who knows what else.
Yeah.
Now, and there's always been those places in Star Trek, like the seedy underbelly type places where the Enterprise will stop for an episode and that sort of thing before they fly off. But I am intrigued to see stories that are set sort of in the margins. And I mean, we've had like 10 shows now aboard starships, so I'm interested to see a story that takes place in the Star Trek universe that isn't a Starfleet crew on a Starfleet ship.
Yeah,
I think this whole thing looks incredible. I think the production on this thing just looks like it's like they spent, you know, tons and tons and tons of money. But I'm most interested in, well, first of all, it's a starbase, but Michelle Yeoh describes it as her, you know, her base. I'm really interested to know who it was that came up with the plans, the construction plans for this thing, and presented it to a company and said, I want you to build me this.
Right.
I mean, as a special effects guy with a, you know, really good software package sitting in a room, you know, with a mouse, it makes sense. But to actually construct this thing,
that's a temperature.
Yeah. So here's a couple of comments. Matt Sweatman says, I like non-traditional Star Trek stories, so I have hope that this one will be good. Mark says, Star Trek is an optimistic future and Starfleet operates out in the open.
And that's not wrong, Mark.
Right. No, of course. And that's the hallmark of Star Trek.
Right.
Okay. And Elaine says, I'm intrigued by Section 31, but I don't know a whole lot about it other than what was on Enterprise. So it's something new for me. And I had forgotten it was in Discovery.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, I think those comments are very interesting because Marcus basically saying Section 31 shouldn't exist in Federation, which a lot of people say. I'm fine with it existing, but not out in the open with the big ships and the badges. And so it's very interesting. Like you said, Charles, I have yet in all these decades to come approach to Star Trek hating it before I saw it. So I'm like you, I'll just look forward to it. And also, I'm of a certain age where I remember TV movies, like true TV movies, you know, the ABC movie of the week, the CBS movie of the week. So it's kind of fun to have a TV movie like that.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of fun to have new Star Trek that, you know, you can watch in 2 hours.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And it's exciting just to have a Star Trek movie of some kind.
Yes.
Because it's been almost 9 years and they haven't been able to get a Star Trek movie off the ground. So, I mean, I'm happy for the TV guys to not wait for the movie guys and just just make a series of Star Trek TV movies, because 9 years without a Star Trek movie is too long, in my opinion.
Yeah. And a series of Star Trek movies, all doing a different aspect of the Trek universe. That would be just the coolest, I think.
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
And there's been a lot of the 2-parters of Discovery and so forth. Like the Discovery pilot, the debut 2-parter is more epic than any Star Trek movie they've had as a feature film. I mean, the production values are incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. One thing about modern production, and this is mainly thinking toward the Starfleet Academy show that's coming up, which is also set in the we assume set in the 32nd century, since Tilly is on it. Discovery always had, to me, a very limited color palette. Like everything just looked blue for me until they go to an alien planet or something, and then it would open up. But I was excited to see that this one didn't look like that. The station doesn't look like a Discovery type of setting, and then you got the windmill planet, wherever the hell that is, and it's big bright oranges, and I was very happy to see a broader and brighter color palette. Because Discovery, I mean, I guess they wanted to always try to remind you this series is dark by making it always look dark. I don't need that.
Absolutely.
All right, so a couple from Mark. He says the $6 Million Man series started off as 3 TV movies. And why wasn't the Starfleet medical show greenlit? I don't know, but I've been asking for that ever since we started this show. And that's one of the things. Now, one of the things that I've been asking for, we're going to be getting, and that's a half-hour Star Trek comedy, which of course is
we hope. I mean, they're in development, but I don't think they have a green light yet. So
okay.
We hope.
I assumed that had been greenlit since it had been talked about out in the open, but I still, man, a Starfleet medical, I want that show.
So. Yeah, I would love that. I would love other nooks and crannies of the Star Trek universe. Some Starfleet and some not Starfleet. So I'm interested to see what they come up with next.
Yeah. I mean, I'll take a series set at Cisco's restaurant in New Orleans. I mean, come on.
Right.
A workplace comedy or even a workplace drama set in the Cisco restaurant. Pfft, give it to me. I will take it.
All right. Any more thoughts about the Section 31 trailer before we move on?
Did you want to talk about the character cards?
No.
Okay,
I think we'll just wait on that.
Because I haven't even looked at them yet.
Yeah. All right. Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say, let's take a quick break.
Yeah.
And for a promo. And then when we come back, we'll be talking about the latest episode of Star Trek Lower Decks, Fissure Quest. So stay right there.
Red alert! Spoilers.
Good job. And that's spoilers for Star Trek Lower Decks Fissure Quest, which was quite the episode.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Boy, was it ever.
Yeah.
That was so cool. Jam-packed.
Before we get on the rabbit hole of all the Easter eggs, something that we've been talking about all season was, like, are they going to bring back William Boimler, and when will they bring back William Boimler? And they brought back William Boimler. And,
in a big way.
Yeah, and I'd kind of imagined that by the way they left him, I'd kind of imagined that he would come back as an antagonist, right? And he'd be the bad guy of a season or something like that. Right. But they didn't. They went a different way with it. And I was just curious what everybody thought about William Boimler and how he turned out.
Man, go ahead.
He was very much like the Boimler that we know.
Yeah, which makes sense. He should be.
He should be closer to the Boimler that we know than any of the mirror alternate multiverse Boimlers.
Yeah.
I was excited from the very beginning of the episode, they transition into the William Boimler story. And I thought, holy cow, we're actually going to get it. And the way it looked, setting it up, I was like, holy cow, we're going to get like a whole episode of this. I was really excited that we had been talking about this for, the past 8 weeks. And here it is.
Yeah.
It was great.
Now, Keith, he had the black Section 31 badge.
God. I saw that, right? But even that, here we go again. I'm going to really parse this. Even with that, it was a Defiant class ship, a small crew. I'm okay with that. It's when, I see the big ships come in and they start boarding ships with, we're in Section 31. That's where I have a problem with it. But I was okay with it. And I actually thought it was cool to see it as when I was first looking, I was like, it's a small ship. Like, whoa, when you think about what he's doing, what better ship than a Defiant class ship? Small, maneuverable, cloaking device, get in and out, doesn't draw as much attention. Of course, you wouldn't send a Galaxy class in there. So I thought that was pretty cool. Also, my first note on this episode, my very first note, when the Fissure opened up, it's like, oh my gosh, there goes Lower Decks again. I mean, gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous animation in this episode. The Fissures, not just the color, but the effect.
Right.
Absolutely gorgeous. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, I like that they still tied it in with that Section 31 storyline, but it's really not on a 31 mission. It's not, duplicate Boimler out there like running special ops or something like that. He's just, investigating these fissures, and he's got sort of, I see in the comments where Wayne said he's got a bad attitude. He does have a bad attitude, but it really seems like our Boimler with different life experiences over the last several years, but it's not like he's or anything like that. Which I thought was and I thought it tied in very well with the story of the season, where the Fissures we've seen up to this point are really just teasing this story. And I thought it worked out great.
Yes, agreed. And he was doing his captain's log at the beginning of the episode, in which he said, I can't really talk about the organization that I'm doing this for,
right?
So it's pretty clear. Yeah,
exactly. But I like that they didn't harp on the Section 31 thing. We're gonna get plenty of that.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
And I also think it's kind of cool. He's got this like unmarked Defiant class ship, because there was one of those in the Star Trek, the Return books that William Shatner was associated with. That there was a black Defiant class ship, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, in those books, which sort of off the books, which was fun. So. I like that whole end of the storyline. But yeah, I mean, let's go ahead and get into the cavalcade of legacy characters that we got in this thing.
Holy crap!
Wow.
I mean, holy smoke! So there's a couple of things. First, and I guess we'll just do them in order. But the first one is T'Pol.
Yeah.
Whenever anybody brings up, they should do a reboot of Enterprise, they should restart Enterprise, all the actors are gung-ho for it, they should, restart it. And everyone always says, you won't get Jolene because she's not acting anymore. She's living on an island, raising her kids. She's married to a billionaire. She's fine. She's happy. She's just not interested. And holy smokes. That was the first time that I jumped off my couch.
I listened to the Decon Chamber podcast, as I mentioned before, with Connor Trenier and Dominic Keating. And they just recently finally got, Charles, I don't know if you heard that, they finally got Scott Bakula on the show. And that's not because he's been resisting. He just hadn't had a chance. But to your point, Alan, they keep asking Jolene, and she's like, nah, I don't want to do it. Nothing against them. She doesn't even want to talk about the series. So to see her show up and do a part, I was stunned.
It could be that, they plan these things a long time in advance. So it could be that she just hasn't been wanting to because there's nothing new to say until this episode comes out. And now she has new things to say, So it's not like she was ever anti-Star Trek or anti-Enterprise. She had a lot of gripes about Enterprise, which she was kind of publicly vocal about, but it's because she loves Star Trek. And she felt like Enterprise was doing things that Star Trek shouldn't be doing. And she didn't like some of the ways that her character was dealt with. And it's because she passionately loves Star Trek. So I bet you that they will get her now that this episode has gone out.
And I always thought that's a really ironic thing, that the actress who stars in Enterprise is such a Star Trek fan that she resisted some of the more modern takes on Vulcans, which is interesting. We always have this conversation about who can adjust. You're right. She hated the whole T'Pol with emotion storyline. So I also didn't know her name was Jolene. I was thinking Jolene Blaylock. But
well, it's interesting that she was credited as Jolene, but not as Jolene Blaylock. So I don't know. I'm curious what the story was behind that. That's in credits. It was Jolene as T'Pol, and not Jolene Blaylock.
I saw the word Blaylock.
You were mistaken. 100%.
I checked it wasn't, because when I saw all these people, you were talking about, as you said, Charles, the cavalcade of guest stars. I waited for the end to let me make sure this is absolutely the same person, not another person doing the voice. And of course it was, and she was first up. It was just Jolene.
Yeah, and I was convinced it was her by the end. I mean, from the start I was convinced it was her. The one I was really looking at the credits to make sure that it was Sid, because Alexander Siddig sounded very different. I think it's because of the way he was playing the character, in addition to having age. But the whole time I'm like, surely I didn't get everybody else and a voice actor to play Bashir. That's so weird. But no, it's Alexander Siddig in the credits for sure. But
Alfred Woodard. He's not bored.
Yeah.
Woodard was in this.
Yeah. That was the crazy one. Like, if you were, everybody always does, like, hey, what would your ideal Star Trek be? Who would you want to see come back? You could spend 100 years and list every Star Trek character, and it would probably never occur to you to even think of Lily.
Yeah.
That blew my mind that they got Lily in and that it was Alfred Woodard doing her. I was just floored. Like in an episode where I kept getting more and more excited because they kept springing more surprises on me. That one topped it all. That blew me away.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
And freaking Garrick was in this.
God.
Medical officer.
Who was married to a hologram of Bashir.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking, does that Garrick say, I'm just a plain simple doctor? Because later on
because he does have that attitude where it's like, I've not always been a doctor, or whatever it was he says. But he has that sort of attitude as well. That's just Garrick. Right. They were having a lot of fun with the multiverse aspect of this, but also sending up the multiverse, because there was that bit in the beginning that's got to turn into a meme where it's Boimler saying, like, I'm so tired of the effing multiverse, or whatever the exact line was.
That was so meta, wasn't it?
And then when he was like, of course, it's just going to be an alternate version of something we already have seen. I'm so sick of this.
Yeah. I thought that was a smart way to go with it.
Right.
Yeah, talking about poking fun at themselves and letting some of the people who complain about that say that. That was fun.
Well, and it just at pop culture in general, because really the multiverse stories, like the DC, the Marvel, the multiverse stories have been all over the place over the last several years.
Right.
And so I think it's something that's worth poking fun at. And they made 2-Pip Kim a little bit dumb. We said, you mean there's more than 2 universes? Which is I think that's really more making fun of the way Star Trek fans have approached it, where there's the Star Trek universe and the mirror universe is like the alternate dimension in Star Trek, when obviously we've seen many other ones in Star Trek, particularly in parallels.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially.
Just the other day online, I had yet another conversation about that, Charles, to your point, where somebody was talking about the mirror universe. They were just going on and on about how could this person be alive and this person dead. And I went in again and said, guys, I don't think of it as the mirror universe. It's a mirror universe. There's a multitude. So I agree with you. So it was kind of silly to have them say that. And what did y'all think about them completely turning the expectations on their heads about this being some nefarious power trying to take over the universe with the Fissures?
And I thought it was
good. I loved it.
Yeah.
That was perfect.
Yes.
And I loved Lily's her little inspirational speech at the end about how to her the multiverse is looking at all the different possibilities of humanity. You know, all the different ways that we can develop instead of just going to other planets, which is sort of an argument in favor of the multiverses in pop culture, because, you know, you're looking at all the different ways these characters could be, rather than just having the one. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I did too.
I agree. Yeah, and it dovetails with Boimler's thing about trying to act like that other version of himself. That is so cool. You know, because that's what they're doing. It's like they just go in almost this. There's a movie out right now whose name I just forgot, but it's the movie that Robert Zemeckis produced with Tom Hanks, and the movie literally is it's a still camera.
Yeah.
And it literally, yeah, exactly. The entire movie supposedly takes place in one spot. And it shows what happened in this spot, even back to the time of the dinosaurs and in the future and in the past. And I kind of like the way they're saying. Of course, I mean, I know they move through space. It's not like they multiverse travel only in one spot in space. But I do like that kind of concept where, like I said, they kind of look at humans, maybe the human race in a certain section of space, and then they just look at all the different ways humans are. And sometimes, you know, and that's good and bad. The things that maybe we can aspire to be, like Boimler. And maybe things we need to watch out for, like the Empire. That's a very interesting concept that I actually never thought about before for Star Trek.
Yeah, and from Lily's description of the things that she had seen, it sounded as if they've been primarily in the Sol star system. That she saw, you know, a version of humanity where they build a ring around the sun and so forth. Where it sounds like they've really just been there, rather than exploring around space until they did the neutrino whatever and sucked them through the other portal. Where then they ended up on Salamander Planet. But from her descriptions, it sounded to me like they've been primarily just hanging around the one star system.
Yeah, I think so, because, you know, it seemed to imply that they don't have warp drive, but they do have quantum drive. So they travel dimensionally, but not spatially.
Right.
That's right. She did say that. Right? She said
drive? Stack of comments. Elaine says about Jolene, my little Enterprise heart was so happy. Matt says, the completionist in me thinks all these characters' universe should be cataloged. I'm sure some fan somewhere is already on that.
I'm sure.
Wayne says, yeah, Lily made me do a double take. And Elaine confirms that Jolene Blaylock is what's listed on IMDb. So maybe they just made a mistake. I don't know. Made a mistake in the thing. I don't know.
Can't imagine if one of the two is wrong. It's got to be IMDb that's wrong, not the on-screen credit, because they've got to credit the right things on screen. But no, on screen she was listed as Blaylock or as Jolene without the Blaylock.
That's weird.
Which I don't know. I don't know if she's been retired for several years, so I don't know why, if that was by her request or if there was some other reason for it. I haven't, or if she's going by a different professional name now. I have no idea. Jolene Blaylock has been sort of off the radar for several years.
She's the Cher or the Madonna of Star Trek.
Right. But also, I mean, if it's Star Trek, you don't need to say anything but Jolene. We know
of course
who they're talking about.
Yeah, of course.
But IMDb can be updated by just people who have IMDb.
Yeah. I could do it. I've done it before. So the thing about this episode is that, you know, I kept jumping up off the couch and I didn't sit down for like most of the episode because of all these amazing cameos that were happening. But the thing is, it's still a really good episode. It's not like they're painting over, you know, a lackluster story with all these cameos, significant cameos. It's really good storytelling. I mean, it advances the plot of the season arc that we've had. Each one of these cameo characters gets some really good character work in. And I just thought it was a spectacular next to last episode. You know, I just hate the fact that this show is ending. You know, it just breaks my heart that I'm not going to get any more Lower Decks. But if this is the way it chooses to go out, you know, I'm on board. I'm here for it.
And it's a ballsy move to sideline the main 4 characters 2 episodes in the final season. I mean, last week and this week, we got very little of our Lower Deckers. I mean, now we got alternate versions of them this week, but that's not quite the same. But no, I thought it was really great. And I mean, I got pretty invested in their little crew.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
We haven't even mentioned Curzon Dax yet. Freaking Curzon Dax was in this.
Curzon, man,
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Interesting.
And for a sentence
Yeah.
I never thought I would say, what did you think of the relationship between T'Pol and Curzon Dax?
That sums up Lower
enjoyed
Decks
their
for you right there.
relationship.
Right. You like them, Veronica?
Yeah, I mean, it was a oh, there's another Star Trek pair of characters that I was going to compare it to, and I've already lost who it was.
Like McCoy and Spock. It had kind of,
It's
Yeah.
Odo and Quark.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
That
Yeah, they have that
adversarial
sort of
thing, but they have a friendship at the core that you don't see very often.
Right.
Absolutely. And it's not a pair of characters that you would that I would have naturally have gone to. Like, you know what, 2 Star Trek characters need to team up. But I thought it worked really well. I really liked them. I liked their little arc. They were, I mean, it was very obvious from the start that something was going to happen to Curzon, because they were making a big point about the fact that they reiterated the fact that he's got the symbiont, and then he came in limping and said, "Oh, I should have like, you know, that was not a surprise when it happened." But I was surprised by her mind melding with Dax. I kind of expect her to be T'Pol Dax at the end. That would have been kind of cool.
Thought was gonna happen.
Me too. Like she was going to take on some of the like Curzon personality, like we saw in DS9.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've never seen
a great scene.
Yeah, I've never seen the actual symbiote die. They've always managed to find somebody to put it in, even Tip earlier. In this case, she just took over the mind meld because the symbiote died with the body, right? I thought that was pretty interesting. Yeah. Also thought that the Garrick and Bashir thing, because people who use the term ship had shipped Bashir and Garrick for decades. And you probably know Andrew Robinson himself thought that Garrick was gay or bisexual. And so he said that he played him as having a sexual attraction to Bashir. And then later on, the writer's like, well, no, that's not what we intend. He's like, well, whatever. That's how I played it for a long time. So I thought it was interesting that, you know, they did put them together. And it was funny when they had this. I mean, who hasn't had that argument? Whatever you live with, who has that argument? Where are you going to live? This and that. And I thought it was funny. In this case, they're not arguing about what city. They're arguing about what reality, what universe you're going to live in. Right. And I thought that was kind of funny. And then Garrett is still good.
Yeah, I really love the fact that at the end Garrick was like, "I just live wherever you're at because I just want to be with you." And then Bashir was like, "Then why are we arguing about it?" And he was like, "Because we have to." Basically, he was saying we had to practice arguing.
He said because it's fun.
He said because it's fun.
But yeah, but I took it as, but we have to practice.
Okay.
Oh wow, that's reading in.
like he does with lying.
That makes sense.
Yes.
They also did something very interesting. Did you notice? It was cool. It was cool. Did you notice how the Bashir hologram kept popping in and out in a real weird way, interesting way? Like one point, Garrick was doing something. He just turned and he had a medical thing, and Bashir came in just and picked it up.
Yeah,
it was really cool the way he came in and out. It was maybe what a hologram would do. That was a very cool little move they did there.
Yeah, because with the Doctor on Voyager, they always made it seem like he appeared and then would like look around, like he's not been aware of what's going on in the room. But really, he's a computer program in the computer with access to the same sensors when he's not. You know, like he should be just always aware and then just take the physical form when he wants to and disappear when he wants to.
Yes.
And then they did use a mobile emitter at one point.
Yeah.
I was watching for that mobile emitter the whole rest of the time, because something that bothered me in the latest season of Prodigy was that the Doctor had a mobile emitter, but also would disappear and reappear at will. But the only time I noticed the mobile emitter was when they were sneaking around at the end and Garrick popped out with the mobile emitter when they were like, you know, incognito, like when the salamanders had taken over the ship and so forth. So the rest of the time I was watching every time he turned to see if that mobile emitter was on his shoulders, and it did not appear to be, unless I missed something along the way.
Yeah. And then Garrick threw it in the air and he appeared where it kind of floated. There was some really cool effects they did.
Oh, awesome.
Stuff.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
Okay. Comment time. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Keith.
I was gonna say real quick, Charles, you mentioned that about looking around. What was cool was, as a hologram, he doesn't have to walk from here to there. So he didn't. He would just appear. Sometimes across the room.
Right. Why would you?
Yeah. So yeah. Okay. Comments. Elaine says, I loved that Mariner and Paul agree that Archer is a big Starfleet nerd. That was great. And she also says, I'm calling the name of Lily's ship another Enterprise Easter egg. The Beagle has to be a nod to Porthos. Matt says, the Beagle was the name of the ship that landed on the Roman planet. Or is that Romulan planet?
Roman. Yeah, it was
Roman.
Magna Roma on the original series.
Okay, that's what I thought. And then Wayne says we've got one more episode. Don't dismiss the T'Pol Dax idea yet.
True.
I got the feeling that this crew here is stuck in whatever reality they're in.
Maybe, but that may not be permanent. I mean, they may show up at the end to save the day, or maybe Boimler will figure out a way to save them. I thought they were great, so I would love to see them reappear. But yeah, the Beagle, I mean, it might be a reference to Star Trek. I mean, to the Star Trek episode, Breads and Circuses, or both might just be referencing the Voyage of the Beagle from Charles Darwin.
That's what I thought.
Or the Space Beagle from was also referencing that. So I would expect there's a lot of options there, but I think the most important legacy appearance in this show was that the Beagle looked like the freaking ring ship Enterprise.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
But this time we saw it, on a planet, lift off, and the engine thingies unfold. That was the coolest thing.
I know.
Holy moly.
That was a great look.
Yeah, and we saw the Defiant class landed.
Yeah.
We've never seen a Defiant on the surface of the planet before. Unless, probably in like Ships of the Line, calendar or something, but not on screen. So I mean, I thought that was super cool as well. And we're like 9 minutes to the end of the show. We've not talked about Harry Kim yet, so we probably need to get some Harry Kim in there.
Well, chime in really quick. I really loved that this Mariner was an engineer, and she was nerdy as an engineer, and was not like, let's go take chances. Type person. I really love that.
So on Harry Kim. First of all, I loved it. I loved him being in the episode. I loved having multiple ones. I loved them making the joke out of the ranking thing. The only complaint I have about this episode is that the whole angle felt kind of repetitive because only because it was basically a rogue Kim that is the threat at the end. And that's kind of what we got last season, because we had Robbie McNeil come in, and while he's not playing a rogue Paris, he was playing Nick Locarno, and that's basically the same thing. So it kind of felt like we just did this trick last season, know? Other than that, other than that, I loved it. And I loved Kim, and I loved the whole rank joke that ran through it. I mean, you have to do that joke. If you're going to have him in, you have to do it. And they did it really well.
Yeah. I thought that we didn't get much backstory on 2-Pip Kim, but I thought that his turn was kind of abrupt and it didn't really seem justified to me, because we've seen a lot of these like dimensions don't run, I guess, at the same time speed as other universes, because we see them appearing from different, Curzon Dax, what would appear to be from earlier, and the data we got it looked like a TNG era data a few episodes ago. And then T'Pol said that, she doesn't appear to be 300 years old, so you'd expect that she's from 100 years ago or whatever. So I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that a lot of these Kims could have just been not made lieutenant yet. This guy really had a chip on his shoulder, I guess, about the making lieutenant thing, that when he saw a bunch of other Kims who weren't lieutenants yet, like, went over the deep end and became a supervillain.
Right. Super villain.
You know how sometimes you write a story to the end and you write a joke to the punchline. And I feel like they wrote this joke to the punchline. They wanted to do the Kim girls kind of sort of evil because of that. Now, me personally, I would not have written a universe where Harry Kim seems to always be an ensign. I would have written a realistic universe where Harry Kim was a lieutenant, a commodore, a commander, a captain. I would have done it the other way, but it kind of feels like they wanted to do that joke. Oh my gosh, it looks like the universe makes Kim a ensign most of the time. Because I agree with you, I kind of wish they had introduced him sooner. One, because I'd like to see more Garrett Wong in the show. But two, as you said, Charles, it did feel just a super. He almost even literally cackled at the end. He's like,
that really to me seemed like they were just fulfilling what Bob Boimler said at the beginning, whereas, like, of course, the bad guy is going to be some alternate version of something. Which I thought the things he listed were pretty funny, where it was like a Borgified Kirk or a human Worf or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. What he said was there going to be a big Spock. Yeah. What do we got? A big Spock, a really big Spock. Yeah. That was kind of fun. Oh yeah, human Worf. Yeah. But still, I still enjoyed it, and I just can't get over it. It just looked so beautiful. My gosh, it just looked great. Really.
Yeah. I thought this was a great episode. I thought this was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yes. So is Garrett Wong, therefore, how it goes? Garrett Wong, is he done, or is he going to be back next week the way that ended? Because
no idea.
Well, you still have you still have the Kims on the ship. You have the crew on the ship, and I guess the main bad guy, Garrett, Ensign Kim, Lieutenant Kim, Two-Pip Kim. I get it right. I guess he died in that explosion.
It seemed to me we saw his ship go poof, kind of Wile E. Coyote style. And it seems like the crew we followed in this episode is stuck in that universe. But I mean, who knows what happens next week? I mean, maybe they open up the thing and come in and save the day. I don't know. Or maybe Captain Kim from the Prime universe shows up and is like, "What's going on?" Like, we don't have any idea what's going to happen next week.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's going to be very interesting.
But I'll tell you, next week is going to, I just feel it. It's going to focus almost exclusively. I mean, the whole crew will be in it, but it's going to exclusively focus on our top 5, our 5 lower deckers, and they're going to save the day. And it's going to be their story. And it's going to be, this big arc of, and I got to feel like some of these characters that we saw this week are going to be seen next week, because I feel like our characters are going to get at least a glimpse into what their alternate characters have become. It was interesting to see a mariner who isn't the gung-ho mariner, and who isn't the risk taker, and who isn't the adventure seeker. I thought that was a really cool twist. I wish they had played a little bit more on that, but I kind of feel like, especially for Boimler, he's going to see what William has become. Like all that he's achieved and all that he's sort of like grown into in his own personality. I think we'll get something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Do you think we'll see a return of bearded Boimler from episode 1 of this season?
I don't know. That's a lot of Boimlers.
It's a lot of Boimlers.
We already got a fully bearded Boimler.
Yeah, I was pleased for him that his beard finally came in.
Yeah. We're going to get at least 2 episodes of bearded Boimler.
Yep.
You'd think that, they can just like turn you into a Klingon. He could just go down to the barber or whatever, and they could just make his beard grow instead of his embarrassingly long time. It's taking his beard to grow in.
Do naturally,
I guess. I wouldn't wait for it.
Okay, Matt has 3 comments. 1, so we learned that it was for the best that Harry Kim remained an ensign. 2, I guess I get a kind of evil pleasure at the thought of Kim never getting promoted, but that's my Voyager dislike coming through. Oh, shame.
Yeah.
And 3, I hope part 2 starts with Boimler still freaking out. Yes.
Me too.
Yes.
Yeah.
God, that's so funny.
Yeah, man. I can't believe we only have 1 episode of Lower Decks left.
Boo.
Yeah, not 1 episode of the season, 1 episode of the series. That's so sad.
Yeah, and our third Star Trek series finale for the year.
Yeah. So we knew that we were going to get an extra long final episode, because they said that the finale would be 8 minutes longer.
Right.
So we got some of that in this episode. I was surprised to see that it was an extra long episode this week.
Yeah, it was like 28 and change.
28, yeah. So we're going to get a little bit more next week. With 8 minutes doesn't sound like a lot, but when your standard episode is 22, 8's a good chunk.
Oh, sure.
And we got a lot of really, I think that they were able to do a lot of the character work with the cameo characters this week because of that extra time. And I think it was very well spent. And, we're going to get a little bit more of that next week. And I'm ready for it.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. If you were cutting this one down to 22, I think scenes like T'Pol and Curzon would be like that's where like trims would come in. So no, I was glad this one had a little time to breathe, because there was a lot going on. Like there was just a lot to process in this episode. So I mean, I thought it was great. And the crew compliment, it kind of made me think of those new Star Trek comics, because they're doing that in the comics now, where it's like a random assortment of Star Trek characters. So you have like Worf and Lore and Ambassador Spock like on a starship together.
Right.
But it was different universes, but I thought it was a cool way to bring in characters that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to be there given the time frame. But I thought it was cool. I mean, when else are you going to see this weird collection of characters together? I love this episode. I thought it was great. Mm-hmm. And I thought it might just be a funny word. And you guys may already be familiar with this, but the name of the ship, Anaximander, are you familiar with this already? Is the name of a Greek philosopher?
Yes. I meant to look that up before we went live, and I completely forgot to, because I knew it meant something.
Well, I thought it was like because Axanar is a famous Star Trek thing, and they're on Salamander Planet, so I thought it was just a funny word. But no, I looked it up, and it actually is a real thing, or it's a Greek philosopher, so it makes sense for a starship to be named that. But it has the benefit of also being a funny word.
Yes, it does. It can serve multiple purposes.
That's right.
Ooh.
All right. Well, Keith, where can people find more of you?
You can find me on Facebook, primarily the ESO Network Facebook groups.
And how about you, Alan?
CosmicCreative.com. KOZMIC Creative.com.
And how about us, Franca?
FeltNerdy.com.
And where else?
Monkeying Around, a podcast about the monkeys.
That's right. And then join us next Thursday. We'll be going live on Thursday evening, talking about the series finale of
Expect a low of 31 degrees.
I'm sorry, y'all.
Computer, disengage and weather
right.
We'll be going live on Thursday evenings talking about the latest episode, the series finale of Star Trek Lower Decks. It'll be our final new Star Trek episode of the year to talk about. So
yeah,
join us live on Thursday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern for that. If you happen to miss it, the video remains available on YouTube, or you can find us on your favorite podcast platform by searching for Earth Station Trek.
Yes. And don't forget, Stellarfest is next April. Go to stellarfest.org and get your membership and book your hotel room because you don't want to miss it.
That's right. And if you have ideas for panels, submit them.
Yes.
We're hoping to have a big stack of things to choose from. It's going to be a fun time. It's going to be a fun convention.
Indeed.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. You everybody have a good night.
I have a closing.
Oh,
I was going to say, we're missing the closing.
I forgot.
I usually don't have one, but I have one prepared.
Okay.
Oh, no, we're all going to die. Ah!
Perfect. Nailed it.
Excellent.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Take care, y'all. See you next Thursday.